Pranakasha livestream.
Hey folks, this is Matt at Pranakasha Productions, and today we are talking with John Broughton and Johnny K of Farragut Forward, which is a wonderful fan film that also has a fundraiser going on right now, and maybe you guys can tell us all about it.
After you, John, the floor is yours.
Sure. So, Farragut Forward, if your audience is familiar with Starship Farragut, the longest running web series of classic Star Trek, it is the new chapter of the Farragut crew set forth in the movie era. So if you remember Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3, Star Trek 4, etc., it's in that genre of the 1980s films of Trek.
Right, and you're the captain of the series, right?
Yes, I play Captain Carter.
All right, and then Johnny K is the director.
That's right.
Director and cinematographer.
Yep.
Okay, and it's set in the Star Trek movie era. I actually watched the clip from your guys' fundraiser, and I was super impressed with the costumes, especially.
Thank you.
And the Klingons. So I mean,
Klingons, yeah.
But everything. I mean,
Awesome.
the uniforms, the whole deal. I mean, how in the world? Like right now, you guys have raised something like $15,000. I think that's what it says on there. So how could you do something that good on that small amount of money?
It's even less money than that because we don't have the $15,000 yet.
Okay.
It's in the hopper. Yeah, we don't have it, but yeah, I mean, John, you could take this, I guess. I mean, I've been a filmmaker for a few years and I've pretty well practiced it.
Okay. Well, I know there's a couple tricks. Like for one thing, it's really dark lighting and there's smoke and stuff. It's because it's on a Klingon ship. So because of that, you can get away with a lot. But still, I mean, the cinematography is really good. And then the Klingons look like real Klingons. Like, I mean, usually you have to hire, a top of the line makeup artist to do stuff like that. So.
Yeah, we were lucky. We actually leveraged some area cosplayers. There's a lot of very talented folks around who already kind of come self-sustaining, self-sufficient with their own Klingon costumes. They already know how to do the makeup because they apply it to themselves every other weekend or so. So we actually, why try to reinvent the wheel? So we actually leveraged some local cosplayers who are, good friends of ours too. And as it turned out, they turned out to be pretty good actors.
Wow.
I think too, especially William J. He's got a pretty big speaking role as the Klingon Koroth, who you saw in the prologue. He was the Klingon interrogator, and he's definitely going to be coming back as a main character for the full episode that we're now fundraising for and going to be shooting later this year. So we looked out with the Klingons, I think.
Wow. Okay. And I remember in that scene there was 2 Klingons, right?
There were three total. Yeah.
Okay.
William had the speaking role, and then we had two background Klingons played by Matt and Dale Henry, who are brothers actually, and they knocked it out of the park as well.
Yeah, and so I mean, and they all just were cosplayers. That's how you did it.
That's how we did those. That's right.
And did they know each other? Because their costumes matched really well too, as far as I could tell.
Well, Matt and Dale are brothers, so they, definitely probably built theirs at the same time and the same way. And
Okay.
then Williams, I had some involvement helping William build his a few years ago. His is a little different. It's a different style Klingon uniform. I think
Okay.
Matt and Dale's is a little closer to some Deep Space Nine. Williams is actually based right off the Robert Fletcher patterns for the original Klingon uniforms that were made for the motion picture
Okay.
way back when. So.
Okay, and also because the lighting was so dark, maybe that it was just hard to tell if there were differences. It'd be harder to tell. Huh. Wow. Okay. Also, the the soundscape was super good. So I mean, the whole thing was really well done, and even to do that was like maybe 2 minutes long, was it?
A little over 3. Yep.
And then that, do you guys mind saying how much that cost?
The sets, I will tell you, were less than 200.
$200 for the whole set? Oh
Yeah,
my God.
it was using reclaimed wood from wood pallets, 1/4 inch masonite 4x8, flat boards, and it was the paint from the Oops department of Home Depot, and yeah, it was a lot of
Oh, that's good.
endoscopes and all kinds of stuff that I found.
I mean, I've blown $200 on one costume that I bought off of eBay. You know?
It was just the sets. Now the
Yeah.
uniforms, I mean, I can't speak for the Klingons, but I know that they put a considerable penny on those warrior costumes.
Oh yeah.
Pointed out, I mean, they're very screen accurate.
Yeah.
And
Those go a couple thousand each, probably, those
I
Klingon.
would. Okay.
But again, they weren't, they were not built for this production. And I think it makes sense to mention, like, when John and I mentioned shooting that 3-minute teaser to Farragut Forward, which is now on YouTube, we decided pretty early on to self-finance that, and which is why we're crowdfunding the full episode now, because that's a significantly different, there's more to it.
Right.
That's going to be shot on some Starfleet bridges in the movie era that don't exist yet. So that's, really why we're raising the money now, is to build those sets. The prologue, what you saw, was self-financed. We did try to do it on a micro budget, if not no budget. And then
like,
that room, we only built half that set. So we shot everything facing east in the morning, and then tore the set down halfway through the day, rebuilt it on the other side, and shot the reverses in the afternoon. So there's ways around things like that,
Okay. So it's like in a garage or something like that, or?
It was in a very tiny smoke-filled room with about 12 people packed in there. I think we did another interview the other night. It probably smelled a lot like what a Klingon ship would actually smell like too.
Well, that's good. Make it realistic. Yeah, man. And then you guys are also building an '80s era. I can see, like, when I look at it, I think of the Wrath of Khan. Type of
exactly.
bridge, and then uniforms and such, which also look super authentic. So I mean, okay, so it cost you $200 to build that set, but I mean, you're obviously not considering what it would cost to pay the people who built it, because obviously people put a lot of time into it.
Well, the people that built the sets, I mean, it was my father helped me. My father helped me, and then I had Ramel Panzow helped with what I would call set decorations, and Doug Capret helped me as well. But I mean, it was a small group of people.
Right.
Then we transported them to over Northern Virginia for filming. I mean, I don't want to de-emphasize the level of effort. I mean, it was a lot of work. It was just that I bring up $200 in terms of the ability to be innovative, to find ways. I mean, wood is very expensive, so collecting wood pallets to get the framing, to the struts for the framing, and then just being able, just thinking creatively to reduce cost. Even now, I just had a call with one of our set construction leads, who provided a budget before we started our crowdfunder, whereas John likes to say crowd beggar. Before, so we were trying to, yeah, exactly. So I bring up the cost because we're trying to leverage every penny of the money that we're getting in. So I'm like, and I was going through the budget again. I'm like, this is where we can reduce costs. This is where we can consider using 1/2-inch plywood versus 3/4 plywood. We'll save about $1,000. Just build more framing with that. I mean, just looking at cost savings, because the more that we can save, the more that we can redirect some of the money towards like post-production costs.
Right.
There's a lot that it's going to take to make this movie to the level of what Johnny and I want it to be.
Now, I think you kind of answered this question once already, but I'll ask it again. So, in designing these sets, are they designed where you put them up, use them, and then tear them down forever, or are they like designed in such a way where you can put them together and then take them apart and then put them together again later on?
They're being built to be modular and to be able to take apart and then store for a period of time. We have a place where we have the sets right now, which can be up for an indefinite amount of time, but the end game would be that they would be deconstructed and be able to store on top of each other in such a way. They're modular. Our sets, if you're familiar with our previous web series, Starship Farragut, we had a 10,000 square foot studio where my father, Mike Bednar, and his group of volunteers and his team built faithfully the original series sets in the same configuration as it was on the Paramount lot.
You guys built that from scratch?
Yes.
Oh shit! I thought for sure you were using a standing set that
No, that was Farragut's set. That was several years in development.
Wow.
With each film effort we were always building sets based on the script requirements.
Right.
So with each new story we told, we would add something new, and it just kind of grew and evolved into what it was. But the sets down in Kingsland we built, and those are permanent standing sets. So they've been up for well over 10 years.
So this is one of the sets now that you loan that out to other fan films, right?
Well, we sold our sets in 2015.
Okay.
The Star Trek Continues group, and then that was then a few years later that was sold to Neutral Zone. I think it's Neutral Zone Studios, but they lend it out and they rent it out to other fan film groups. So, and since then, I mean, we now have a very, what I would call an oversaturated fan film market, because everyone is
they're all over the place. Yeah.
But no one is in the movie era. No one's doing what we're doing. So it's all new sets, all new wardrobe, and the to the complexity of Monster Maroons, the Klingon the warrior uniforms are probably equal to or greater in complexity and cost.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a deeper appreciation, Johnny, through Garrett and just seeing, and through what you and William J. have built. I mean, those Klingon, they're just exceptional. They're just
they look completely good. I mean, they look like
and then I'm starting to understand why in 2015, 2016, when I was working on this, I was having calls with Robert Fletcher, and I would ask him. I'd have all these notes and questions that I would ask him about the Monster Maroon, the Starfleet uniforms, and he had very good recall, and he could just, I can't remember anything. I'm always having to write notes, but he could recall everything, and all the conversations always came back around for his love of the Klingons. And I guess I'm kind of getting it, because I've got a deeper appreciation for the Klingons.
Yeah.
Those costumes were used for decades. I mean, they were built for, Robert Fletcher designed them for the motion picture way back in, 79, 80, whenever. And those costumes were then turned around and used Star Trek 3, 4, 5, 6, probably Generations, all through Next Generation, DS9, Voyager. And I would imagine they showed up in Enterprise as well. So, I mean, you talk about costumes that, how many hundreds of actors wore those things over the course of 25 years. And, it's an iconic look. It's, in my opinion, that's as iconic as Spock's ears,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's why first season of Discovery, when they changed the Klingons, everybody got so pissed, because Klingons are really well established. We all accepted the change that happened between the original series to the movies. Everybody accepted that pretty well, but then after that, once they tried to do it again, it was like, why'd you do that? Those aren't Klingons. Those are like something else. And then, of course, they backtracked second season and made them look closer to what we expected, happily. But wow. So I remember when I used to read, of course, I've read lots of Star Trek literature too. And one thing that I remember that really stuck in my mind about the original series sets was that they were also modular, where you could take chunks of the bridge out to make room for cameras and stuff like that. Can your guys' one do that too?
Yes, I mean right now we're only building a third of a bridge.
Right, I'm talking about the
It's,
TOS set.
the
That
TOS
one.
sets, yes, they were built um, just like where Spock Station was on up by the view screen. That was never built. That was built later. We did build the platform and a railing to get a kind of nice over the shoulder shot of someone being in the foreground.
Right.
But yeah, it was always the intent to make it a film set, not a studio. So just as they had blinking lights, we had that. We didn't have a lot of the monitors. We could have updated and upgraded things, but it was a film set, so we built it, and just like we're doing now, an 80s period piece of filmmaking. The TOS was pretty much a 1960s television Star Trek TV show. I mean, it was just very much a period piece in itself.
Yeah. Neat. Okay, well, I'm totally a TOS guy. That's where my roots are. So I could talk about that the whole time, but I don't want to. We should talk about your current stuff.
John was
So, yeah. So do you guys want to talk about some of the new sets? I did see some things that you're building the bridge. Are you going to build like an engine room, or are you ever going to have a scene like that, or?
We do have we had an engineering alcove that we'll have we're not going to build an engineering set. I can't imagine. And we're just building the sets that are needed to tell an effectively good story. It's not building sets just for the sake of having stuff.
Of course, I mean, you can fake it too with green screens if you're good at it. And like, of course, I know all about that. That's basically what I do.
We're trying to stay away from that. We did a lot of talking about that last year, and that's green screen is a place we want to end up if we can't do it practically in real life. We can resort to the green screen. We didn't want to, green screen has always been kind of plan B for us. Plan A was always living up to the standard of those TOS 60s sets that, John mentioned that's are still living down in Kingsland, Georgia. That kind of set the bar for what we want to do with practical sets, and the virtual stuff and the green screen stuff is kind of a fallback. We talked about that a lot last year.
Or you can do a combination. A lot of shows now will have a real set, but then a big chunk of it will be either a blue or green screen where they use it to enhance it. And there's also tricks like that, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just to add to what Johnny said, I mean, I think, again, we're trying to do a nice homage 1980s salute to the movie era of Star Trek. And we're even using physical models.
I saw that. That Klingon bird of prey. Is it a Klingon or Romulan? I mean, I get it mixed up. On a big green screen. And then I think that shot that you showed at the end of the teaser where it was backing off, that looked really good. That looks way better than almost any CGI, in my opinion.
Practical model. I mean, that was a real model built by Mike Bednar, by the way, who plays Tackett, in Starship Farragut. And Mike is a master model maker. It's a tiny, I think that's a 1/350 scale bird of prey model kit off the shelf. And he packed that thing full of, I think, 36 LED lights.
Wow.
So there was no CG on that at all, other than the motion tracking and the masking. All the lights that you see in there, those were all practical lights that are actually in that model kit. And trying to shoot that model kit, I became very intimately familiar with that piece of plastic over the course of the 3 or 4 weeks it took me to shoot it.
So it's how big? It's like this big?
It's not even that big. It's a 1/350 scale, and the wingspan, if the wings were fully extended, I'd say they're probably 15 inches wingspan, something like that.
Okay, so maybe like that. Now I need to watch this again because I'm sorry. Actually, what I'll do is I'll show the clip of it.
Tell me, Captain, where is Smithfield?
Smithfield?
What do you want with her?
RT, is that you?
Where is she?
Why?
Our mutual friend needs her.
Friend? What friend? What friend?
I have often thought upon death. I know that voice. And I find it the least of all evils. Prescott.
Prescott? But he died, saving us.
Not our Prescott. "10 years in a Romulan penal colony taught me something, Jack! Vengeance is nothing. For I am not wrath. I am death."
Okay, now we just watched it. That was cool. So that bird of prey that was backing off at the end was, you said, was only like this big, huh?
1/350 scale, tiny little piece of plastic, and it's an off the shelf kit. It's the same one, I guess Polar Lights makes it, but it's the same kit that's been in production since probably Star Trek 6 or Generations. That bird of prey kit has been around for a long time.
Okay, and then of course now you got to see what we were talking about earlier was the Klingons in the clip that we just saw looked completely movie quality, right? Amazing costumes, and the makeup on them was completely authentic.
Mhm.
And then your guys' uniforms look great. You know, the two Starfleet captives, and then you're getting hit by the pain sticks and so on. So, I mean, it all looked really good. Yeah. And then you already described, but like that set was like built out at $200 worth of plywood, you know, and then basically in a small room, I guess about the size of a garage.
Probably about 10 by 10, a 10 by
Ooh,
10
that's
area.
small. That's
And you-
smaller than this bedroom that I'm in right now.
And cram 5 actors and 4 or 5 crew members in there with equipment, and you get an idea for it.
So the room you were in was so small, you had to just build half the set, shoot it, and then tear it down and build the other half to shoot the other angle.
That's right. And we were gonna do that over the course of 2 days. You know, build this, shoot the first day, tear the set down at night, and then come back the second day to shoot the other side. And we actually kind of had a unanimous vote among the cast and crew just to push through and shoot the whole thing in one day. So we did about a 12-hour day. And also think about those Klingons, the makeup you were just talking about. Those guys, they would have come back the next day and spent 2-3 hours getting back into makeup. But if you can do that once, in a single day, you got to shoot for it. So we got it all in about a 12-hour day. I think John spent most of that day on his knees on concrete.
Oh, ow.
Yeah.
We had some padding. It was funny because we kept adding layers of padding under John's knees. So as the shoot went on, John got about 6 inches taller, I think, as the day went on. But I know your knees were rocked after that.
Okay. That brings back memories. I watched one show about again Star Trek, the original series. When they were first shooting, they were in this sound stage where like there was like a bathroom nearby where every time somebody flushed the toilet, it would be loud enough so it would ruin their scene. You could hear it. And I think they also had a problem with pigeons or something up in the rafters that were just, I mean, it's so funny when you hear all these stories about this sci-fi show that's all modern in the future, but behind the scenes they're just like dealing with all these totally, unspacey type of situations. Wow, that's really something. So that, and then, how did you light that? Was it mostly natural lighting, or like how did you do that?
No, there was zero natural lighting in that. It was we
Okay.
had a completely blacked out room.
Okay.
Most of it was lit with, if not all of it, was lit with LEDs. And I'm big into my lighting. I love to kind of edge light and do a lot of reverse key lighting. So you never see a lot of kind of prominent key lighting to the front of the face. I always like to really reverse key light and light everybody from behind as much
Give
as
it
I can.
Kind
And
of a
then really,
silhouette.
yeah, well, you can pull off the silhouette trick if it's a very iconic silhouette. So like the Klingon silhouette with the ridges on the heads, I mean, that stands out beautifully if you light it from back, and especially Klingons are kind of, in my mind anyway, it's pretty iconic look for the Klingons to be standing in a dark, smoky room, whether that's the chamber on Kronos and Next Generation or some of the ship shots. It just lends itself, the costume and the makeup lends itself to that type of environment. But yeah, it was no natural light. It was all LEDs. And yeah, we shot that in very low light conditions. It was actually my first time using a Blackmagic Pocket 6K cinema camera. I'd never used one before.
That was
And
going
I
to be the
used,
next question.
yeah,
What kind
I
of
used,
camera?
it was a Pocket Cinema Blackmagic design Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. And what I will tell you about that camera is it is amazing in low light
I can tell.
conditions. We shot that
Yeah.
at probably ISO maybe 400 most of the day. So I mean, it's almost pitch black conditions. And I told John in pre-production last year, I said, I want to go dark with this. I want to make it moody and atmospheric, and I think we can sell it through the performances. And we don't need a lot of light for this. I think sometimes, in my opinion, I think sometimes movies and films use a little too much light versus too little. And I think it leaves a lot more to the imagination when you kind of shut the lights off and make it a little more moody. It gives it a different tonality there.
Well, definitely, yeah. Of course, these days with digital cameras, you don't need nearly as much light either.
That's right.
But wow. So it sounds like you're not only the director, but you're also the director of photography.
I am. That's right. I'm director
you're
and
both.
DP both. Yep. And I had a lot of help. John already mentioned him once, but Ramel Punzal was my first AD, and he could read my mind. It's the best working relationship you could have with a first AD. He knew exactly, what we needed to get out of each shot. He knew how to light it. And we were on the same page immediately. And in fact, I poached Ramel. I think we shot Farragut Forward, the prologue, in October. And I had another project I was shooting in November, completely unrelated to Star Trek. And as soon as Farragut Forward, that day was over, I said, I need you to come traveling with me. And I need you on another set to come work with me. So he did. But yeah, big props to him. But yeah, it was a fun day.
And then who did the editing?
Myself.
Oh, okay. You're one of my type of people.
Myself.
See, I still can't wrap my head around the idea where you've got one guy's the director, someone else is the director of photography, another person is the editor. Like in my mind, I don't see how that could work. Like I think that it should be all the same person.
Right.
But apparently in the industry, that is almost never the case.
But if you think about it, I mean, that's the old school way of filmmaking. I mean, that's the way they always did it back in the day. But now, when with computers and software and cameras themselves, I mean, everything is so integrated, and it's made to a product that consumers can now purchase, and they can do everything themselves. I mean, and the level of sophistication and films that they can produce, I mean, it's amazing.
Right.
It's almost like, and I think Johnny would agree, that and you as well, Matt, when you film something, you kind of have a vision of how you want it. When you film it, you're already thinking of the editing. So it's already working in the background. And then when you so to then hand it off to someone, it's kind of alien. It's like, whoa, they don't know what's up here. They don't know how I want it. So it's, Yeah, it is very weird to kind of offload it to someone else. But yeah,
I can't even offload my storyboards. You know, I had a couple folks offer last year, and I can't draw, man. Like I do chicken scratch, and I had a couple folks offer on different projects the last couple of years. Hey, let me draw your storyboards for you. And to me, I was like, how can you see what's in my head? Like whatever you draw is going to be your vision. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's not the vision. It's not the pictures I see in my head unless I stand over your shoulder every panel and every line you draw, which I'm not going to do that. So, I mean, I can't even outsource my storyboards. I have to chicken scratch all those out. And to John's point, you know, shooting for the edit is a very, very big deal. If you already know how you're going to cut it before you shoot it, and obviously your storyboards will help you with that, you know, you can save a lot of time doing it that way. You don't need to shoot a bunch of superfluous footage if you know you're shooting for the edit, and you get that first. And then if you have some extra time, you can maybe play around and try to get some more creative angles, or depending on how much of people's time you want to waste, you know, messing around with something that's not in your plan. But yeah, I have a hard time handing off anything to somebody else just to go do. I think visual effects is going to be the exception to that. I will be thankful to hand off visual effects to somebody who knows what they're doing with visual effects. So
Yeah, I bet you. See, I can tell that you have a very keen eye, and you really know how to develop the type of look you want. So even if you quote hand off the visual effects, I mean, you're still going to be breathing over their shoulders saying, can you just do a slightly different angle there? Or can you like darken it a little? Or can I see some more contrast? Or, you know, that kind of stuff. I have a feeling that's going to be going on.
you're probably not far off. You probably you got a good read on us already, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the thing is that what your lay person doesn't understand, I mean, for one thing, we're spoiled because we go to these multi-million-dollar movies, the good ones, that look so damn good, and we're like, well, that looks professional, but a person doesn't understand everything that goes into creating that scene and that look to make it look that good. There's a lot that goes into it,
Right.
and it's not just you can throw tons of money at it. In the end, the person who's designing it, the director of photography or whatever, has a really clear vision of the effect that they're trying to create, and then if they're good, how to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, and what I say, I mean, it's sort of like a painting, except instead of just one frame, you have tens of thousands of frames that make this one beautiful movie, you know? And I mean, literally, I mean, you even know this. Sometimes you literally go frame by frame, tweaking it to get the look that you want. That you could spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours just to get like 2 seconds worth of footage to look like the way you wanted it to. You know, it's easy to keep going deeper and deeper into that.
You just described what I did today between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. Frame by frame.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's art. I mean, that's why we do it. I mean, obviously, it's exciting. It's fun to do. There's a lot of easier ways to make money. That's for sure. But it's not as fulfilling. So, yeah, that's wild. So you're definitely a director of photography, but so are you also good at coaching actors and stuff? Like, how do you do that approach, that part of the directing?
That's actually something I'm trying to get better at as a director.
Okay.
Like, I'm pretty confident in knowing what I want before I get there, and then knowing how to get what I want when I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
Something I'm trying to work with, and maybe John can attest to this as an actor that I have directed before. I'm trying to get better in actually really coaching actors on their performances. And typically the way I've worked in the past is I will let them know if they're doing something I don't like. And if they're doing something I do very much like, they won't hear a lot from me. And I'm also not very rigid about it. I love, for actors to be able to look at the script, and I don't expect them to read it letter perfect or word perfect. If they want to mess this around, however they feel is best, they certainly have the freedom to do that. And it's especially true with John. I mean, John has played Captain Carter since 2005. and I'm the new kid on the block. So he has a pretty good idea how Captain Carter, would say things or react to certain situations. And I'm not going to step in the way of that. But I don't know, John, what do you think as an actor that I've directed? What do you think?
I mean, I've worked with, I think I would categorize directors in two buckets: one, technical director, and then an actor's director. And the technical director can work with the cinematographer to make sure everything is framed correctly, lighted, the camera's angled at a certain position. And then you have the actor director who's more focused, who really, he trusts the cinematographer to take care of all those things. He may not even be looking at the monitor. He may be off to the side looking directly at the actor and just trying to make sure he pulls out the best of the actor. I mean, for me, I know that it's kind of hard to judge where Johnny is. He's an exceptional technical. I think for me, I mean, I only had a few lines for the prologue, and everyone across the board was professional. And as actors, we all knew our lines. I kind of kept I kept wondering about, should I have done something differently in that? And I was grateful that Johnny took the perspective of the story being told by Tackett, who was behind Carter. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was just beautiful. The story, all the emotions that the story was really told from Tackett in Prologue. So mm-hmm. When Carter was being jabbed with the pain sticks, all the pain, you saw the emotions, you saw the story from Tackett's expression. So I always kind of, I mean, everyone is their worst critic. And I kind of looked at that and I kept, saying, damn, I wonder if I should have done this differently. And I only had a few lines, mm-hmm. but each line, every word is important. I mean, we all, as actors, we know that. But so to answer your question, I think for Prologue, there wasn't that much, but I did observe you with my son during Red Eagle 1, and I thought you were both. You've always been a technical director, and I observed you being a actor's director when you were working with the talent, the little girl, my son, during Red Eagle 1. So I'm sure as we go further with the rest of the story for filming Farragut Forward, we'll see more of that. And I know I've kind of shared with you some things that that I wanted you to be cognizant of me as an actor trying to portray Carter, because I want everything to be the best that it can be. I want this film to be to the final product to be something that we would go to an actual cinema, or back in the day, a drive-in theater that you would see. I mean, everything. I mean, I've put, guidance out to our previous actors in terms of expectations that I'm looking for, because this isn't what we've done before. I mean, Johnny brings a level of sophistication in terms of how it will be filmed, how it will be, the story will be captured and lit and everything. But there's other things that are outside of that. And I want this, at the end of the day, the film to be just the best that it can be. And if it means, yeah.
So John, it sounds like you're actually the producer besides the star of the show.
I am. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And who wrote it?
Well, I mean, it was a tag team. It was Johnny, Paul Sieber, and myself. Okay. That wrote the full story.
And is the script is all done now? It's ready to roll, or is it?
Oh yeah, it was Matt. This script is the culmination of 6 months of collaboration between the three of us. It was kind of like tag. I would draft it. I would kick it over to Paul. Paul did some stuff, then would go to Johnny, got feedback, and then back to me, and just kind of went around. And then the final version of edits, we actually, Paul Sieber and I, we met at Johnny's place, and Johnny, talked to us in person about his final edits that he wanted to incorporate to get buy-in from Paul and I, and it was just great. I mean, I would describe this script going from good to great to best, or good, better, best.
Great.
I mean, it really just kept getting, and I this is definitely the best Farragut story ever written. Again, I've never been involved, and maybe, you know, it would have been nice that maybe we had done some of that in our previous work, but not to disparage any of that, but it was a learning. It was a very enjoyable process because it went in different directions. I mean,
Right.
I had an idea, and it essentially, when you think about it, it's kind of like the culmination of three stories converging together, because I had kind of an idea and a story and a vision, and then Paul had a different take, and then Johnny had a whole different one. And it's the meshing of ideas and putting the best dialogue together and the best story. It all came together.
Cool. And so Paul what's his role in it? Is he like the cinematographer, or?
No, Paul Sieber he's the character Prescott.
Okay.
So from our earlier work, so Prescott was one of the main. We had the Fab Four when this series was created, and his character sacrificed himself in the episode "The Crossing."
Uh-oh, spoiler.
Yes, well, this is 2014, so it's not much of a spoiler. But at the end, it's revealed that there was this portal that was created, and the evil Prescott, the mirror, because it was essentially our mirror episode.
Okay.
The alternate evil Prescott was coming through this portal with an armada, a whole fleet of bad guys that were coming into our universe. And his ship survives this explosion. And so although the good Prescott who sacrificed himself is gone, we have the Prescott, the evil Prescott in our universe. And so many years have passed from TOS to movie era, and he's back. So this is this is kind of our Wrath of Khan. It's our revenge story. It's our Moby Dick.
So he's going to be like Khan, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he's a co-writer, and then would you say a co-producer or something like that too, I guess?
He's I would say, I mean, he's definitely a definite stakeholder in the process.
Okay. Okay, so now here's a question for Johnny K. So during this script process, when you were modifying the script, how does that work? I mean, are you just trying to visualize things and try to figure out how it's going to look? Or were you like actually wanting to change the story and change some of the dialogue and stuff like that?
I don't know that the story ever really changed. I mean, given that, you know, you've seen the prologue, we just showed it, you know, it's Carter and Tackett aren't really in a better place at the end of our 3-minute prologue than they were at the beginning of it. So we knew from the get-go that the story that we're telling now is going to be a rescue mission. You know, they're in a bad place. How do we get them out of that? I think most of the change, go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, Johnny. I was just going to say the story didn't change. The dynamics. I mean, there was always the 3-act. There was always what those acts involved. It was some of the dynamics of how things got to where they were. So the dynamics changed, but not the story. I would agree.
Yeah, the story has always been, kind of a rescue mission, and then obviously we're gonna have a pretty climactic ending to this. It's not going to end with a snooze fest and everybody takes a nap and says, "Have a great day. We got him back. That was fun." Obviously, there's going to be a pretty major climax to this, and probably a pretty expensive one too. But yeah, I think most of the contributions I had on the story is kind of like John said, fleshing out the dialogue, fleshing out the characters. You know, as much as we talk about costumes and sets and ships and, you know, LED lights and chair rests, arm rests, it's like the characters really are what's most important. It's the story. It's the story, you know. So put all the Star Trek-y stuff aside, that makes for a great Star Trek visual looking thing and just focus on the characters and the story. And I think maybe my greatest contribution to the script last year when we were kicking it back and forth, I really wanted to make sure that even some of the characters who aren't the Fab Four that John mentioned, and I hesitate to call them minor characters because they are not minor. They are pretty damn major in this story. But I think something I added to that, I think, was really making sure each of those characters who aren't always in the spotlight had a very important role to play in the story. We didn't want anybody on the sidelines just because they're the helm officer or just because they're sitting at the science station. Like, even those folks have their own, as much as we can in a 30 to 40 minute, maybe 45-minute fan film. You can't see everybody's point of view on things, but you can sprinkle in enough to make these people more than just wallpaper. We want to make sure everybody has something to do. And I'm pretty proud, I think, of those additions in the script.
And you can accomplish that in different ways. So, I mean, even if a quote minor character doesn't even have any lines, you can still show the expressions on their face and their body language and stuff. And there's a lot of ways to do that, right?
You'd better believe it. Star Trek 4, of all I love Undiscovered Country. It's actually my favorite. John, I heard John on another interview the other night say,
that's Star Trek 6.
That is Star Trek 6. I'll get back to that. But Undiscovered Country is my favorite. I heard John say in another interview we did earlier this week that Wrath of Khan was his favorite. I'm an Undiscovered Country guy for sure. After watching them again recently back to back, I'm going to pick 6 over 2. That's controversial. But to your point, Matt, there are some excellent scenes at the very beginning of Star Trek 4 on the USS Saratoga, which is that's kind of a primary reference for me because of that low key lighting, that's a very dark ship. And there's some great reactions just of the bridge crew. They might not always have lines, but they know they're in a pretty dangerous situation. And it just cuts to these reactions of all these crew members kind of looking around at each other in the darkness. And that's exactly what popped in my mind when you said, you can do that with body language. Star Trek 4 is a great example of that, the opening scene.
Yep. Yeah. So here's another question for you then. So if you're using that way of expression or whatever, do you find that stuff actually written out in the script, or is it mostly in your head?
I think I went to great lengths to put it in the script as a reminder to me to shoot it that way when we turn the cameras on. Yeah, so I did write a lot of that in, and it's just a one-off line. It's just we cut to this character who has a dubious expression, or this guy is concerned, and it's really just kind of a reminder to me when I read that again, and 3 or 4 months when cameras are rolling, it'll click in my mind. Oh, I remember why that line in the script and the description is in there, because that's a cue to me to kind of cut over. And it actually goes back to what we were talking about a second ago about shooting for the edit. You can also write a script for the edit as well. If you already have the edit in your mind as you're working through the script, I mean, you're writing the scenes, so in your mind how you at least have a basic idea how they will cut together. So why not write the script for the edit and then shoot the movie for the edit, and then you get to the editing phase, and if you've done your pre-production right, maybe 90% of the work is done for you.
Yep.
Yeah. So what editor do you like to use?
I use DaVinci Resolve.
Oh, okay. Everybody's talking about that now. Like I feel like I'm old school because I'm using Premiere Pro.
Check out Resolve. It's Resolve is known for its color grading. Resolve is used in Hollywood on big level productions purely for color grading. And I think it was a no-brainer that they put an editor in their software, and now you never have to leave Resolve. You can do I sound like I'm filming a commercial for them, but I mean, you can do your After Effects in Resolve. It's called Fusion. You can do all your sound mixing in Resolve. It's called Fairlight, and you can still have the color grading. And I'm a recent convert to Resolve, and I don't think I'll ever go back to, I came from Vegas. I was using Sony Vegas before.
Yeah, I've used Vegas too.
Yeah. I don't think I'm ever going back. I love Resolve.
And DaVinci isn't really that expensive, is it? Isn't it like $500 or something?
Actually, when you buy a $3,000 camera, you get it for free. So I don't know. They actually ended up packaging it with the Blackmagic. I think DaVinci Resolve and Blackmagic are owned by the same company. So you actually end up getting a free version of the studio there's a free version of DaVinci Resolve you can get out there. I have the studio version, which is paid, but it did actually come included with the camera.
Okay. Well, someday I might make the jump because I mean, literally every person I talk to keeps saying they switched over to DaVinci.
Yeah, there's something there. That's the way it's going.
Yeah. Okay. So back to I still want to talk about. See, this is what always happens. We've been talking for an hour, and I feel like I'm just getting started. So I want to go back to the costumes. So how did you guys get those 80s era uniforms, Starfleet uniforms, to look so good? I mean, they look completely authentic.
They are as authentic as you can make them. I was fortunate enough to be friends with Dennis Bailey, who about 10 years ago loaned me a jacket. He had, after they wrapped up Star Trek II and Robert Fletcher was going on a tour of the convention circuit, and a news studio actually had one of the uniforms, and somehow Paramount loaned out these costumes to help with promoting the film. He had it, and he had it like indefinitely. So he re-engineered, even took carefully. It was a screen used background costume that was used in the film, and he carefully took parts of it apart so he could see in the insides and recreated it. I mean, exactly 1-to-1. Even if he didn't understand why they did something a certain way, he just recreated it exactly. So I have that byproduct, and I have access to some friends out in Hollywood, and I have some actual patterns that have never been commercially made available.
Okay.
One is from a Hollywood insider who did all the the repair work for the Star Trek Experience costumes, and that were originals, and she worked on some other Hollywood productions. So I got her pattern, and I had another one from another person. It's never been produced. So I was fortunate enough to be connected with people that helped me and still available to help me and pick their brains. And Dennis Bailey, and for those that do not know who Dennis Bailey is, he wrote the Next Generation episode Tin Man, and he also did the rewrite for the episode First Contact of Next Generation.
Oh, cool.
So he's got some connection to Star Trek. He lives here locally. He lives not far from me, so we're able to get together. And he's been helpful. And there's been some other people, Jim Brooks, and some of the other people on the Monster Maroon forum, and through my own research. So we just as Johnny and the Henry brothers in making their costumes, the Klingon warrior costumes, as accurate as possible, we're doing the same. And it's a small team of wardrobe warriors that are making these Monster Maroon, both the commission officer uniforms, and we're also having the enlisted technician jumpsuits being made.
Oh, cool.
And we have one white, actually two white, the white engineering radiation suits that you saw in engineering. Those are being made, and we have some of the medical nurse uniforms. So until recently, I didn't realize how many different uniform versions they had, but they each have a purpose. And
Yeah, and so I mean, so this is a whole subject in itself because so all these different people are just scattered around the country? We're saying a couple of them are local?
Yeah, they're scattered around the country, and they've been helpful to me in terms of resource and connecting dots, if you will. The fabric is being acquired from Taiwan. It is exact to what was filmed with. The only exception is that it is made out of polyester, not 100% wool. So but it has it has a little bit of a shine because of its synthetic fiber property. Right. But Other
couldn't
than that,
tell.
it's the right color, it is the right weave, it is the right thickness. So,
And then
it's actually, I was surprised to see how well it sews. I'm not a big fan of synthetic or polyester fabric, but it actually comes together very well.
so do you know how to use a sewing machine? Like, could you create one of these
Oh
things
yeah,
yourself?
yeah. I've made a few.
Okay, so you really
Yes.
know the nuts and bolts, all
Oh
this.
yeah, yeah. I learned how to sew, and I should go back a step. That when we were doing the Starship Farragut web series, although I could dabble in a lot of different ways, prop making, set building. I wanted the uniforms for Classic Trek to look exactly as they did. I mean, this is back in 2004, 2005 time frame. I could not get a tailor to make any of these, including the tailor I'd seen for many years, even when I was in the Navy. He was like, "What are you talking? I do tailoring. I don't make costumes." So I had to learn. I had to bone up. I bought a machine. It was my Christmas present for 2004, and
To
they
yourself.
showed me the person that sold me the machine. They sold me a good workhorse machine, and they taught me how to use it. And then I just started to. I was making the uniforms, the Classic Trek ones, and I was a stickler that I wanted them to look as Bill Tice, who designed the uniforms, that they look like they were painted on the actor.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have the signature collar. If you look at our work, I mean, they all have a nice snug fit. I mean, the uniforms look like they were
They look
made.
great.
They were made and tailored for each of the respective actors, and each of those uniforms that I made, whether it was Starship Farragut or Star Trek Continues, or helping out some other Star Trek fan production, they were made for that actor, and they were given away
Tailor made,
for
okay.
free. So for you think about all those episodes, all those films, all those productions, I've literally made hundreds of Star Trek TOS uniforms, and that includes whether it's the Classic Trek male tunic, the female dress skirt uniform, or the technician jumpsuit.
Right. Uh-oh, there was a
So,
ding.
but yeah. So this one, making this uniform was much more complex, and I was always intimidated. Many years, I never wanted to make this uniform. It's called Monster Maroon for a reason, because it is just given all the complexities of making this. This truly is a garment. I mean,
Right.
Bill Tice designed what looked like more of a costume. It's a one shirt pullover. Robert Fletcher designed a 3-piece suit.
So can yours like unbutton and do that thing?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. I mean, there's
It's
also like
made
some
exactly as the originals.
and I mean, there's like metal on it and stuff. How did you guys make the snaps and all that?
Well, the snaps are still commercially available.
Okay.
And the chain, it just was recreated.
Yeah.
It's cut into 4 chains, and it's just hand sewn along the side and the top.
Do you find when you're shooting, do you still have to use safety pins and do all kinds of
Can't
things
hear
to
your
get it to
sound,
fit?
Matt.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Johnny, can you hear him?
Yeah, I still got you.
How about now?
Oh, wait, hold on. The speaker went out.
I can hear you, Matt.
Okay.
And
Sorry, I'm back. I can hear now.
Okay. So, do you find yourself still having to use like safety pins and stuff like that and pulling stuff back to make it fit right during the shoot, or is everything? I mean, you know all those tricks, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, we did a quick video last night of our Farragut tier, Dean Rogers, and he's got it. Everything was made right, but his collar was about 1.5 inches too wide. So I did use a binder clip for that piece, and I'm gonna alter it after.
Right.
So, but yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes
you
you got to do it. I mean, if it's all about what translates on film, what you capture, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So how you have it jury rigged, it's and then so we are to the point of the Monster Maroons. We're actually making more uniforms of the Monster Maroons than they made for the original Star Trek 2. We have essentially 2 crews that are being in the script. And if you go back and watch Star Trek 2, not everyone was wearing them. You had people wearing the enlisted jumpsuits, or the people in engineering wearing the radiation suits, or the if you watch the torpedo when the shuttle pod comes and docks with the Enterprise and they come aboard, there's like 2 or 3 people in the medical, white uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a lot of different uniforms. But in terms of the Monster Maroons, there weren't as many as you would think. So because we have 2 different crews that we're outfitting, and because of our actors with various body types, a lot of them are having to be custom made to their measurements. And
yeah,
as best as I can, I'm repurposing jackets accordingly. There's certain people that that are of similar body types that I can swap out, and we're doing as much. Trust me, I'm doing that as much as I can,
right.
Because those jackets are time consuming. I mean, I had that usually when I hand something. You brought up about the chain. I mean, that's something that when I'm watching TV, I do that. But it's time consuming. But yeah, we are. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, well, so that's
a lot
just
of work
interesting
involved in making.
So that the star of the show is actually working on his own uniform. Well, actually, you know what? That sort of makes sense.
A lot of people wear multiple hats and fan productions. Yeah, so I don't know if it's uncommon. It's probably maybe uncommon that the showrunner is sewing, but yeah, I mean, people wear multiple hats.
Oh, that could be your new nickname, John, the sewing showrunner.
I like that. He's not heard the last of that. I like that.
I can relate to that very slightly because way back when I worked for Sears in the vacuum department, but they also, besides selling vacuums, they sold sewing machines. So we'd have to figure out at least how to work it slightly so we could somehow, sell this thing. And it was always like, if you sold a sewing machine, that was like Christmas because it was very rare that you'd sell one. And they were pretty expensive, and they had like the highest commission of everything in that department. So I was like, yeah, I sold a sewing machine.
But even the Klingon warrior costumes, they require sewing. I mean, our newcomer Garrett, he masterfully sews those things. And you're dealing with marine vinyl and leather. I mean, you're dealing with not the typical things that get sewn together.
Yeah, that's really wild.
Belle, our other wardrobe person, and she's another person who jack of all trades. She's got a lot of different talents. She does that as well.
Matt, I'll show you. I'll show you a video. I'll send it to you after we get off of this. But we just put out a behind the scenes look at Farragut Forward. It's up on YouTube right now, and
okay,
it's a little 3-minute behind the scenes piece. But in that video, you can see all these beautiful Monster Maroon uniforms. And then you can see Belle with a little pocket flamethrower just torching holes through the side.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it takes a little bit out of us every time we see that. But, those paint stick burns, you got to show how those paint sticks affect people one way or the other. So
yeah, and there was before I got to Matt, there was a lot of trial and error and a lot of rejects. And okay. I saved all I got like 4 or 5 jackets, and I was disappointed. I'm like, what? I can't. And then Johnny's like, don't do anything. We can burn them. We can. And I was like, good. I mean, it was the greatest thing I heard because of all the time that went into figuring these things out. They have a purpose and they will be used and they will get use out of them. So that was probably the greatest thing I was able to hear.
I said the same thing to the set design guys, the guys that are designing and building the bridge sets. I'm like, if you have any bridge consoles that aren't quite perfect, don't throw them out because we're going to burn them. We're going to torch them. And then we'll have some We'll have some battle damage bridge consoles we can show, later on in the movie when things get a little explosion-y.
Yep, all these little details is what you got to think about when you're making a show. Yeah, that's really cool. So, well, okay, just we're getting close to wrapping up, but I'm going to ask another question since we're talking about uniforms. I heard that Gene Roddenberry was really against wrinkles. So he made a big deal about everybody's uniforms had to be ironed. And did you guys run into problems with
I've
that?
never heard that. I know that he was not a fan of, as you know, Gene was responsible for the motion picture, and they did not bring in Bill Tice, but and then for the second movie, they kept Robert Fletcher, but Gene Roddenberry was a consultant at that point. When he was brought back to do The Next Generation, he didn't use Robert Fletcher's designs or asked him to be involved. They pulled back in Bill Tice. But I've never heard that about wrinkles, or I've never heard any of that before.
Well, maybe it was manufactured by the internet, but
There's no wrinkles in the future.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, I mean, but I understand what you just said because the Next Generation uniforms are again back to much more sleek, look.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, Matt, that, we had the pajamas, if you will. That's, I think, what Johnny calls them in the motion picture, the monochromatic uniforms that Robert Fletcher created. And then for the Wrath of Khan, that's where they really looked like a military uniform. Even the ignition jumps, I mean, it all kind of worked really well, and it had a purpose, if you will. And it kind of fit more the nautical collar, the jackets. It had that Space Navy feel. I mean, to me, it seemed much more of a serious film. So Gene, again, these were true garments that Robert Fletcher created. Gene, I was told that Gene never liked them because they looked too military.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he started The Next Generation and he had full reign and creative control, he pulls back in Bill Tice, who does these designs. And I was looking at him the other day and I'm thinking, does this really, you go from one dramatic thing for the Wrath of Khan, and they use those uniforms throughout all the other subsequent films. And then when they would do a nod to something in Next Generation to show the past, they were still using them even, further along. I mean, I think they used it for, I don't know if it was 100 years, but it was a long period of time in Trek lore. But then, so Gene Roddenberry decides, he gets Bill Tice, they design these kind of crazy, kind of looking, again, they look more costumey. And then later on, they just didn't seem to have a lot of purpose. I mean, even I'm rewatching and I'm getting back into Star Trek, mostly the movies and Next Gen. And from a design uniform perspective, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know that the reasons of why it happened, but when you look at it from a practicality, it doesn't seem to have a lot of sense.
Well, of course, one obvious thing is they went back to multicolored, different colored shirts as a different role on the ship. And but what I found out and just recently is, and I think this is my theory is that Gene got that idea from what they do on the flight deck of aircraft carriers, like on the aircraft carriers, so that you can tell who's who from up at the bridge.
Right.
Everybody's got a different color shirt on depending on who they are, if they're a fireman or if they're whatever. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's where he got that idea. So I don't know if it's true or not, but that's my theory. So
I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of like, to tell you the truth, because I'm TOS, I like the multicolored things where you can tell who they are by the color of their shirt. And but I've always wondered why they switched from command gold to suddenly gold becomes security and red becomes command.
Well, that was Bill Tice again. And the reason why he chose those colors, the burgundy, the wine, he called it wine. I think it was teal, and then the gold, the mustard. those colors had the best. They worked the best with people's complexion. Those colors, those three colors, worked the best with people's complexions. And he flipped the command, the what was perceived to be red with the gold. He just flipped it just because he said he that was something he just arbitrarily did.
And I read somewhere that that's what Patrick Stewart looked best in. Is what I read. Patrick Stewart, it was more the burgundy or red was more flattering on Patrick Stewart than the gold was. So I think I read that somewhere, and that was all she wrote. So
that makes sense. Yeah,
that's believable. Okay, interesting. Well, again, we can go on and on and on. So for sure, I'm going to put like links to all you guys' stuff in the description. So you also have a Facebook page, right? Farragut Forward. And then you've got your fundraiser that's Indigo, right? Indigo, and then we should put links to the clips that we talked about. And then of course we're gonna put the clip from Prologue. We'll have already seen that. I'll stick that in there. Or now you've already seen it because it's magically appeared. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up or wrap up before we call it good?
I just want to mention, and John will piggyback on this, I know, as he should. Matt, we are in the final 18 days as we're recording this. I'm not sure when it's going to air, but as we record this tonight, we are in the final 18 days of our crowdfunder, and we would be remiss if we did not hit that pretty hard. We are asking for help, and your money, we've already raised over $15,000 as of tonight. What that money is going to is building sets that do not currently exist. We can't go to a standing set right now to film the project we're getting ready to film. All that stuff has to be built from scratch. So that's really where the money is going. Mostly the sets. It's obviously going into some other production costs as well, but building those sets. And like I said, we're tonight 18 days away from the ending of this campaign. So we're asking, even if you can't support it financially, we're asking anybody that can just to share the word, share the link. Let's get it to as broad of audience as possible. And that will help us. Even if you can't, contribute financially, please help us boost the signal among Star Trek fans, filmmaking fans, et cetera. And I'll let John take it from there, but I just wanted to hit that before we jump off here.
He said everything I would have said. So, and I would just emphasize that the sets, everything, it's not like we can drive somewhere. I mean, we are just like we did classic Trek when no one was doing it. We built the sets, and we are doing the same exercise now. We're building sets that no one has ever recreated. And so in the costumes, to the extent, we're the same exercise. It's a lot of, we're taking the vanguard on this new series, just like we did the initial one. So it requires capital.
And also a lot of talent. I mean, you guys obviously have a really clear idea of what you want it to look like, and it looks great. So it's a really high quality thing. It's amazing actually how much quality you guys are able to get out of really a tiny bit of money compared to what most studios pay to try to create something like that. So yeah, well, I'll for sure contribute to it, and we'll put a link for that in the description too. And it's been a pleasure. It's just great talking to you guys, and I look forward. So I guess it's going to be a 30 to 45 minute film when it's done. And is there any timeline, do you think, when it'll actually be, you'll be done shooting, and when it'll actually be through post-production and all that and ready for us to see?
John, I'll let you take that. We've not, we have a rough idea, but you might have a little more solid.
We have a target, but I mean, the thing the other challenge that we have is that in parallel, where we're building sets, we're also trying to film. So we're creating a production schedule that will, for example, we'll first film probably the Klingon sets, because some of them are already built, and we'll be expanding upon what we have, and creatively we'll leverage what we have and augment those sets to film while the bridge sets are being built. So we're using all of 2022 to build sets and to film at the same time. We have our set construction team working, and we have people also, there's also the other wardrobe for talent that's needed that isn't made yet. So, but everything will be built accordingly to a schedule. We're targeting March of next year. So,
All right.
But however that falls, it'll be what it'll be.
That's great.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. Well, I'll probably have to have you guys come back then. At some point, we'll do another show, and you can tell us where you've gone, how far you've gone, and and all that. It'd be fun to hear all about it.
Yeah, I would love to.
All right. Well, thank you, Johnny and John. So I guess we'll do our customary.
Oh my gosh. Can I do it?
If it can be done.
I need a
Get that man some duct tape.
I got to do the hook. There we go.
There you go.
Or you can do you could do the Klingon since you're into Klingons. Kapla!
Oh yeah, there we go. A couple of them.
All right, guys. All right, take care.
Thank you, Matt.
And we'll
Thanks
see
for
you out
having
on
us.
the internet. I really look forward to seeing Farragut Forward.
Thanks a lot.
Pranakasha production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta